Hi, I'm Billy, and this is the Unlock Your Child's Full Potential podcast, where we discuss how to teach our children the lessons we wish we had learned earlier, the skills that will give them a head start in life. No one teaches you how to be a great mother, and unless you had a great mother to emulate, you have no idea what that even looks like. I believe that we all want to be the best moms and create an environment where our children can blossom into the best versions of themselves. And each of us has uncovered some part of that truth. Let's tap into the collective wisdom and inspire each other to become the moms our kids deserve us to be. Hey everyone, and welcome to today's interview with Lia Lamela. Lia is an electrician with a truly sparky personality. She's on a mission to empower other women in the trades and to build a strong, supportive, structured career community. She is the host of the Sparky Life podcast, which is all about trade tales. Our topic today is not women in the trades, though. We talk about dyslexia. Lia shares what it was like growing up dyslexic, what her hardships were, what she was thankful for. Looking back, she ruminates on how parents can best support their children with learning challenges. She is a great example of how, with the right tools and the support of your family, you can conquer any weakness you have. Lia has a warm and generous personality and an incredible hearty laugh. She's one of those people who make you feel rejuvenated after talking to them. Just wait and see. Hi, Lia. I'm excited to have you here on the show. You're my first guest who's not a mom and will be speaking from the perspective of the child. Yay! So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Would you please tell us a bit about yourself and your experience growing up and dealing with dyslexia?
Sure. I was told that I was a very, very happy baby. I was super happy and very easygoing. And my mother likes to tell the story that when my little sister came along, I would constantly give her toys because she was the exact opposite. She was colicky. So she'd cry often. And I would be giving her toys to try to appease her and make her calm down. So I was a very happy-go-lucky baby. And then I started kindergarten, which was relatively fine. And then first grade. Once we got to first grade, I came home and was miserable. So right away, my family knew something wasn't right because I went from like, yay, every day's sunshine to I don't ever want to go back to this place. It was horrible. And basically, they discovered that I was having a very hard time learning how to read and write, and that I was way behind my peers. And so my mother took it upon herself to have me go to a specialist. And I'm very grateful and thankful that she did, because if she did not investigate different specialists, I would not have the opportunities that I have now. I probably wouldn't be able to read and write. And she didn't just go to one specialist. She did a whole bunch of investigation because she was told that I was mentally retarded at one point. She was told that I would never learn how to read and write properly, and I would always be behind. So it's important to fully investigate what might be going on with your child when they start to struggle academically. In any profession, you have good doctors, bad doctors. You have good teachers, bad teachers. So it's really important that you investigate all different types of backgrounds and be a part of the process of discovering where the challenges are so that you can assist the specialist in identifying what exactly is it that's going on. Because when they identified that it was dyslexia, I was brought to somebody who knew how to handle children with dyslexia. And that's how I learned how to read and write and speak.
So what were the signs, actually, besides that you weren't happy? What was challenging?
Girls, I find, tend to go longer academically without being identified as having a learning disability or any kind of learning challenge. And the reason is we're taught to be quiet and nice. If you cannot read and if you are way behind your peers and you don't understand what's going on, you clam up, you try to be invisible, and you stay super quiet. And as far as the teacher's concerned, especially at those young ages, kids are tyrants. They've got enough on their hands dealing with a full classroom that if you're quiet and you stay in the back and you don't cause trouble, you don't, make a peep, you're kind of like just passed along. Like, okay, it's fine. It's fine. So it was mainly that I couldn't do the homework, the writing in class. Like I wasn't able to perform writing your ABC. I barely spoke. And it was because I couldn't pronounce a lot of the words that were being used. I didn't understand what was going on, and I would get things jumbled and backwards very easily.
And that was not just in school, but at home too, in a safe environment.
Yeah, at home, it was different. At home, I was mommy's little helper. I would follow her around with a toy broom. And I was still quiet and shy. It really wasn't identified until school started.
So let's clarify. Dyslexia is a learning disorder. It's not an illness, right?
Correct. Yes.
So people with dyslexia just process information differently.
Yes.
Okay. What's the best learning environment for kids with dyslexia? It's not a classroom. Should they be homeschooled or just tutored?
Like most learning challenges, there's a spectrum. So you can be dyslexic to the point where you flip your B's and D's sometimes, or you're a slow reader. You could be dyslexic to the point where you can't read at all. Same thing with mental retardation, same thing with autism, same thing with ADHD. There's always a spectrum. So depending on the severity will determine, whether or not you should be with a one-on-one specialist, whether or not you should be in a small classroom setting, whether or not you just want to take your child to a tutor who specializes in learning challenges. So they go to the regular class during the day and then get the one-on-one with the tutor in the afternoon. Everyone's different. Best in general, I find, to have the one-on-one.
That's not just help after school, but the whole learning process is just one-on-one.
Yeah. So in the classrooms, a lot of parents and a lot of students are faced with the challenge of being called classified. If you're IEP classified, that means you're going to be put into what the kids make fun of as the slow classroom. And in classified classrooms, you could be held back, or you're not going to be taught the same material that the other students in your normal classes are going to be taught. And here's the thing. Being dyslexic doesn't mean you can't learn. Being dyslexic doesn't mean that you don't have a high IQ. It means you learn differently. So if you classify somebody who's dyslexic, you're doing them a disservice because you're not allowing them to advance. So my parents fought for me, which I was very lucky that they fought for me, because the school immediately wanted to classify me. And they wanted to put me in those classrooms that weren't educating like your normal curriculum. By fighting that and going through many, many tests, I placed advanced placement in English and in the arts. So it's important that you fight if your child's going to public school to be acclimated in those normal settings, because you don't want them left behind or missing out or not being able to access that subject material or platform because they've been diagnosed with a learning challenge.
Yeah, that's right. With time and exercise and patience, do you learn everything that's challenging? Do you learn to do everything that people without the disorder do, or it's just a way of life?
People who are dyslexic have a hard time reading and spelling. Now, there are ways to teach students with dyslexia that will allow them to read and write. Like I just said, I actually got into advanced placement for English, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all reading, writing. How did that happen? It's because I was taught things like Stevenson grammar, which is a way of teaching a dyslexic student. So because my brain operates a little differently and how I absorb information is different than somebody without dyslexia, if you teach them with certain tools, then they're able to do the same thing that everybody else is able to do.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So that's awesome.
yeah.
So, in your opinion, what's a better course of action, to work around your areas of difficulty and focus on your strengths, or to tackle the weakness? Like, I have to learn to read and write like everybody else. Or maybe I could listen to audiobooks instead.
Yes. So I listen to audiobooks. I go through a book a week. I used to be of the mindset when I was younger to focus on my strengths and not to focus on the weaknesses. And I think that was a huge mistake. Reading and writing and math, you will not escape those things in your life, period. If you struggle in any one of those categories, it is not a good idea to ignore it or not focus on it because it's so much of our life. Now, I'm not saying that you should study grammar and be proficient like a professor in grammar. I'm saying that you need to be able to find the right tools that will teach you because you can be taught. That's what it comes down to. So any weakness that you have, you can conquer. You're never going to be the best at it, right? But you can be at a level of high functioning with the right tools. And it's all about discovering the right tools. So for example, people like Jim Quick, who wrote the book Limitless, highly, highly recommend. Tools like Stevenson Grammar, highly recommend. These are the type of things that will be able to take that weakness and elevate it so that it doesn't hold you back in any way in life.
Yeah, so you don't have limitations to what career to choose or what education to pursue.
Dyslexics tend to be very creative. We're big picture thinkers. We're very good at the big picture. It's a huge strength. People with dyslexic brains. That being said, creative writing is generally something that most dyslexics are kick ass at.
Yeah. That's the positive side.
Right. So if you can conquer grammar enough to the point where it's readable, legible, understandable, right? And nowadays, with all the tools that we have with AI and grammar checking and this, that, and the other thing, a spell check, you're able to excel in advanced placement classes because what's more important, the period or the context?
Mm-hmm.
Editing and being able to have good grammar is important, but it's more important to have the concept, the creative idea.
And I was surprised to learn that dyslexia is actually widespread, and approximately 1 in 10 people have it, of course,
Yes.
to a different degree. And among them, there are a lot of successful people like Steve Jobs, Richard Branson.
So what happens with people with dyslexia is it's very severe. So you have the majority of people in jail are dyslexic.
Interesting
And
statistic.
then you have Steve Jobs. Do you see? What ends up happening is if you don't get the support, right? If you grow up in an environment where you don't have the tools, you don't have the support, that's a lot of hardship to have to overcome. If you grow up in a supportive environment and you get those tools, you can really excel in life. So it tends to be these two extremes when it comes to people with learning challenges.
Okay, so what's the best way that parents can support their children with dyslexia?
Learn about it. learn about it, speak to specialists. Jim Quick has amazing tools to use for how to improve your reading speed, how to improve memory. There's many tools out there, and it's about investigating the tools and having your child participate in different types to see what works best for them. Typically, dyslexics learn more tactile, so by being able to perform or do things as opposed to auditory.
Okay, I'm hopping in for just a minute to tell you about the free resource I recently created. It's called the Connection Blueprint, and it consists of 5 tools that will help you improve the relationship with your child and create an environment where your kid feels seen, heard, and loved. After all the lessons we want to teach our kids require us to first have a trusting relationship with them so that they're ready to hear our advice and lean on our support. Anytime I feel disconnected and out of sync with my own children, I get back to this blueprint, put the tools to practice, and it works wonders. I'm sure having a loving and trusting relationship with your kids is a top priority for you too. So check the show notes and get your copy of the Connection Blueprint. What about self-image and confidence? I guess kids with dyslexia get ridiculed by their peers at school.
Yeah.
So how was your experience?
So it was the worst thing in the world to be called on to read. I'd have to sound out the words, and the kids can be cruel, and I would be and they would laugh and say, "Come on already." It was miserable. So reading aloud in class was definitely a nightmare. I would recommend setting your kids up for success. Like if you have a teacher who's requiring a student to read in class that has dyslexia, that maybe you request that they go about it a different way, or that maybe the student is moved to a different classroom where the teacher approaches reading a different way, because you're setting somebody up for failure by doing that. And another thing that I think is super important for parents is to read Mindset by Carol Dweck. She's done tons of studies on how to improve children's ability to be successful in life. And it comes down to saying things like, "You're such a good learner." Don't say, "You're smart." You want to say, "You study well." You're a very good problem solver. When you say things like, "You're smart," or "Wow, you're so amazing at math," you make it sound like they were innately born that way. Could be true. Maybe there are good math genes in the family. Who knows, right? But when you say these things, when the student comes to a point in their academic career where math becomes challenging, or the thing that they were so good at and came so easy, all of a sudden they start failing at, they'll turn away from it. It will be earth-shattering to them. Like they'll take it on as an identity. I took on the identity of, I'm an artist, right? Because that's what wow, you're such a great artist. And that I would never be able to do math, and my reading skills would always be slow. And so I adopted this as though they were permanent fixtures, which is completely untrue, because I'm currently an electrician. And if you have any idea how math is involved in that, algebra, trig, it is insane. And I excel at math now like I've never excelled before. Why? Electrician, right? A lot of things I am physically doing. So
Yes.
I understand the relationship with the numbers. When I read Limitless by Jim Quick, I improved my reading speed. There are always ways to work on things that you want to work on. And I think that it's normal in society to label, especially kids. You know, we go into cliques, we go into groups, and it's how we try to find our place. So it's very important that at home you don't reinforce that, because if you make them afraid of failure, then that's a surefire way for them to continue to fail because they won't even try.
That's so true. Excellent point. The fear of failure, I do struggle with it. Yeah.
Right. And that's what I love about Carol Dweck's approach, the way she teaches. Her mindset is called the growth mindset. So it's the belief that there are certain things that genes play a big role in, and there are certain things that your environment plays a big role in. So, for example, if I wanted to be a football quarterback, about 5'5", 120 pounds, it is unlikely that I will be successful at that because my general makeup does not support that. However, for you to say that I will not be successful in finance because math was difficult for me, or that I wouldn't be a successful journalist or storyteller because I couldn't read or write, that's untrue. I mean, when I was in school, I was unsuccessful at those things. And now in my life, those things are a part of huge success and prosperity in my life. It's important to encourage that you can always learn and grow. It's how you approach it.
Yeah. And that's our role as parents, to help them believe that before they believe themselves. Yeah. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
I think that being a parent is a privilege. I haven't had that opportunity to have children yet. I want to have children desperately, and I hope I am blessed with children one day. And so the parents that I come across that are deeply involved in what their kids are being taught in school, I find that those relationships are prosperous and very happy, and they seem to excel in life. So when your child comes home from school and they say, I have homework or I have this, sitting down with them and actually seeing what they have to do, I think is extremely valuable. Because the other thing that I've learned in life is that a lot of academics has nothing to do with success in life. It's really important that if you are interested in guiding them towards a prosperous path, and of course any parent, I can't imagine that they wouldn't want anything else for their child, is for you to think about how can you relate what they're learning academically to day-to-day life. So if you're doing math, I would talk about rent. I would talk about mortgage with your kid. I would talk about paying phone bills and credit cards and what an APR is.
Yes.
This is far more valuable, and they'll be able to relate it later in life a lot easier. Maybe not make some of the mistakes I made.
That's exactly my mission with this podcast, is to teach the kids the lessons that are actually not taught in school. What it is to like to have a morning routine, to meditate, like personal development for kids. If you start early on, they're going to be great.
I think your podcast is amazing and incredible and much needed. And you're 100% correct. If you instill those values in the beginning, the sky's the limit.
Thank you, Lia. Thank you for sharing this information with us and being so open about your experience. Would you like to tell our listeners where they can find you and learn more from you about your podcast?
Yes. So you can find me at Instagram, Sparky Life of Lia. Lia is spelled Lia. If you want to email me with any questions about dyslexia, or if you want to have a child that has dyslexia and just wants to speak to somebody who has it, know what it's like, knows challenges, give some tips and tricks, you can email me at thesparkylifeoflia@gmail.com. And the podcast that I have has to do with construction career and trades, because a lot of learning challenged students do very well in trade careers.
Mhm.
And there's this huge misconception that having a construction career is somehow less than, or you won't make a good living. As an electrician, you make six figures. So,
Wow.
yeah, plumbers as well. So there are many trades that are financially very successful. You have the ability to build your own business, be your own boss in a lot of construction careers as well. And as we saw with COVID, construction careers are the foundation of civilization. If you don't have running water, if you don't have electric, if you don't have a roof over your head, then we're in third world countries. And unfortunately, I have lived in a third world country. I know what it's like to not have water and electric. And I can tell you the worst of humanity is when you're in that kind of poverty. So to be in a construction career, to be in the trades, is a very honorable career choice. You are elevating society by choosing that route, and you're always needed. So if you're interested in learning about trade careers, my podcast is Sparky Life, because Sparky is slang term for electrician. And take a listen and learn about construction careers.
Awesome. Thank you. Listening to the interview now while I'm editing it, I'm thinking I should have Lia come again on the show and talk about construction careers and the opportunities there. I know for the most of us, it's a bit early to think about career choices for our children because they're still young. But my girls tend to already share their plans and dreams, like, Mom, I want to be an architect, and then a cook, and in the meantime, a ballerina. So, in one of those talks, I might ask them, Do you want to be an electrician too? I don't know much about that yet, and that's why I'm curious to learn more from Lia. All I know is that there is a piling student debt and a lot of young adults with business degrees who don't have the six-figure income of an electrician. So please DM me in Instagram and let me know if this topic would be of interest to you, and I'll invite Lia again. Now the takeaways. Number 1, it's important to fully investigate what might be going on with your child when they start to struggle academically. Because just like in any profession, you have good doctors and bad doctors. It's really important to be a part of the process of discovering where the challenges are so that you can assist the specialist in identifying exactly what's going on. Number 2, being dyslexic doesn't mean you can't learn, and it doesn't mean that you don't have a high IQ. It means you learn differently. So if you classify somebody who's dyslexic, you're doing them a disservice because you're not allowing them to advance. If your child's going to public school, fight for them to be acclimated in normal settings. You don't want them left behind or missing out or not being able to access that subject, material, or platform because they have been diagnosed with a learning challenge. Number 3, you need to be able to find the right tools that will teach you because you can be taught. Any weakness that you have, you can conquer. You're never going to be the best at it, but with the right tools, you can be at a level of high functioning. Number 4, people with dyslexic brains tend to be very creative. They are big picture thinkers, which is a huge strength. Editing and being able to have good grammar is important, but it's more important to have the concept and the creative idea. So if they conquer grammar enough to the point where it's readable and understandable, they're able to excel in advanced placement classes. Number 5, there tend to be 2 extremes when it comes to people with learning challenges. The majority of people in jail are dyslexic. And then there's Steve Jobs. If you grow up in an environment where you don't have the tools and you don't have the support, that's a lot of hardship to have to overcome. If you grow up in a supportive environment and you get those tools, you can really excel in life. Number 6, don't say to your child you're smart. You want to say to them, you're such a good learner. You're a very good problem solver. When you say things like you're smart or wow, you're amazing at math, you make it sound like they're innately born that way. And then when the student comes to a point in their academic career where math becomes challenging, or all of a sudden they start failing at the thing that they were so good at and it came so easy, they'll turn away from it. it will be earth-shattering to them.
Thank you so much for listening and letting me be a part of your day. If you enjoyed this episode or the show in general, please share it with a friend and help me reach more moms around the world. I would also appreciate it if you consider leaving me a review. Reviews are literally the lifeblood of a podcaster and help me so much. Don't forget to subscribe so you get notified when a new episode drops. See you next week!